It's a great day. My name is Che Brown, the happy entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the #1 business development and revenue focused late night show in the country where we are on a mission. And our mission really is to empower, our mission is to inspire, and our mission really is to provide you, the entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And on this episode, we have the one and only Daniel J. Williams. He's in the building. And he'll be talking about how to pivot, how to move, how to do the things you need to do. I can't wait. What's going on, Daniel? How are you, man?
Man, I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm excited, man. I'm just excited about having the opportunity to share.
Well, I'm excited for you being here. I don't get a chance to meet many folks, but I got a chance to meet you in person. And so that was pretty cool recently when we was at an event. So thanks for being here. The first question I have for those folks that are listening, they might be hearing pivot and they're reading the flyer and they're thinking pivot. It means different things to different people. When you say I have to understand how to pivot, what does pivot mean and what does that look like these days?
Well, when I'm speaking of pivoting, I'm talking about course correction. I'm talking about really particularly men that's been going in a direction that it seemed to be in a good thing at one point, but now they come to the realization that it's actually being a block to them having the type of lifestyle and being the type of man that they really desire to be at this point in their life. So it's about a trajectory change.
Now, I guess why do people struggle so much these days? Why are they struggling to actually pivot these days, by the way? When I say pivot, why are they struggling to do the right thing? What's holding them back from really doing the things they already know they should do?
Well, I believe the reason that men are struggling with doing the right thing is basically because there are too many options that's being available now. There's too many other standards. They're saying a man should do this. If he doesn't do this, behave this way. And because of all of the options, we don't know. When we don't know ourselves, then we struggle with trying to find out what really works because we end up being people pleasers. And I think that's the thing that's really holding men back, being people pleasers rather than being a person that's locked in on their core values and knowing the boundaries that they're going to live by.
And you said locked in on the boundaries that they know they should live by. Some folks might be thinking, who is this guy? They haven't had a chance to read your bio, man. Some folks haven't Googled you yet. Others have already Googled you. They already know. Many do not. So we'll slow down for a moment if that's okay. And do you mind sharing your backstory so people know who is Daniel Williams and what was that defining moment in your life that you decided, you know what? I'm going to help men act accordingly. I think the backstory will help frame the rest of the conversation.
Okay, so little backstory. Once again, my name is Daniel J. Williams, and I'm the lead coach for Act Accordingly Men's Mindset and Performance. And what drove me to actually start walking in the Act Accordingly was the fact that I had a collapsed marriage, and it was due to my own doing. When I got married, the day of my marriage, I had a girlfriend on that day. The day that I gave the ring to my wife and said that I was going to honor and all of that, I was lying. I got married and I stayed single. I was a presently absent father. I mean, I was there in the home with my children and with my family, but emotionally, I wasn't really available to them. And so I was being a good provider because that's what I was taught. That's what we're taught as males when we were little boys, being young men. As long as you pay the bills on time, you're being a good provider. You're doing everything that a man's supposed to do. But I remained single, and I spent a lot of time outside of my home, and I ended up in divorce, losing my family. I ended up homeless for a while, and I had to recover from a loss of confidence. I went into depression. I went into drug and alcohol use, and hey, I had to find out who I really was, and then started to act accordingly.
What was that defining moment where you knew the time had come to make the change? Was there a straw that broke on the camel's back? You said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. And thanks for being so transparent, by the way. One of the things I admired about you, got on stage, I had never met you before. I was like, oh my goodness. And you were just so transparent and so open. So, ladies and gentlemen, the way you see him now is the way he really is in person, by the way. But might be wondering, what was that defining moment, man, that you said, enough is enough is enough. I'm going to do the right thing.
Well, I'm going to say my defining moment. It wasn't a pretty one. It was when I got dressed out in the detention center and I was getting walked into the bay where I was going to have to spend some time for getting a DUI one night. Um, that was my defining moment. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, because as I was walking in, I actually had a peace about myself, because, it was like a moment where God said, you know what, this could be the life that you can have right here, or you can actually have a life of peace, like what you asked me for. But this is going to have to be the moment you're going to choose which one you're going to walk with. So I did my days there, went through my court proceedings, and I chose to live a life of peace and being a man, not just a man of high value, but being a man of importance and value to myself, so that I could be of value and importance to everybody else attached to me.
And you mentioned pivot out of patterns. Thanks for sharing, by the way. What patterns should we be looking for, the men that are watching right now? And there might be some women out there that says, well, I've got the same challenges, by the way. He's speaking to the men, but if you're a woman and you're watching right now, you could very well be in a cycle yourself. But what patterns should folks be looking for? And this might be a loaded question, but how long does it take to break the pattern? I mean, you see this boom, click, but I guess it's a two-part question. What pattern should we be looking for? And how are you able to be consistent? I guess that's really the question, because some people make a decision they're going to do something on Sunday, and by Monday they forget all about it.
I believe so. With each man, it'll be different. So
Sure.
I'm gonna use one that was a pattern of mine that I lived with for years, and it was a pattern of running from woman to woman. As boys, as little boys, when we first start school, when we go back home and we talk to our uncles or our older cousins or whatever, the first question they ask is, how many girlfriends do you have? All through a boy's childhood and even being a young man, and they saying, you don't have any girlfriends? Oh boy, I'm going to have to teach you how to be a player. From that point, we've been placed on a road to not believe in meaningful relationships, but just to have overindulgence. So the reason why I think that we have so many problems with dealing with our emotions and relationships is because we were taught that we're supposed to deal with multiple women rather than having a meaningful relationship with just one. So I would use that as an example that I know that most men have dealt with throughout their life. And I think it's just hard for um, being able to break out of that pattern, because until it hurts enough to where you want to be relieved from it, you're not going to be consistent in it. You may want to, but you start and then you fall back, and then you just finally have enough. I ended up finally having enough, and that's what changed me. So I think it's a matter of, when you're hurting bad enough, then you'll be consistent with being committed to that change.
I love it. And if you had to step back and say, you know what, for those folks that are watching, here's step one you need to do so you can be the right person. Here's step two, or here's three core values. I'll call them values that someone should embody so that they can act accordingly. You've given us all the pieces already, but if you had to summarize it, and for those folks that are tuning, that are leaning in, you can give you what I call the bumper sticker version. Here's step one, or here's another value, and here's another value that you can have to help keep you grounded. What would it be for you, man?
I think I would say step one would be this: there's something in us innately that lets us know when we're doing something wrong. It's like, if you ever paid attention to a baby, no one taught a baby the difference between right and wrong, but when a baby's going to do something they shouldn't, they'll do that they'll do that look around first, because there's something in us innately that says that's wrong. So once you got that feeling, it's a matter of you then acting on it. And I would say the best way for you to actually really move on that. And if you're a person of faith, if you have any type of faith, I would say that you need to rely on God, because that would be the strength that would pull you out of you being in self-control, which is being out of control, so that that way you could be on a path to moving towards consistency to who you really should be. Um, I think, and then the next thing would be is uh, find someone who you can be accountable to, that you can trust, that they're living a life that, you know what, you find them respectable and honorable enough that you would say, hey, I need you to help me through this walk, and that they will help you be accountable, and they be compassionate in you moving from one space to another.
Check one. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry about that. Soon as you finished, I
Okay.
heard something go boop. So I just want to make sure that I was coming through loud and clear. Perfect, spot on. By the way, as you were speaking, we're all looking at your shirt. I mean, we can't help it, Mr. Shirt. I mean, you got the shirt as huge as I don't know what right there. It's like huge. It says "act accordingly." By the way, um, why the words "act accordingly"? I think that's your company, that's your brand, that's your signature. You wear it, you have it on you. I think it's perfect. When I first saw it, I was like, man, what a mantra. What a belief system. What a way to get up every single day. Tell us a little about the backstory of Act Accordingly, man. How'd you come up with that name?
Um, you know what? Actually, so I was and I guess I should say I still am. I was a fitness coach. I had my fitness facility, and I
Well, you
dealing
still
with my
are. I mean,
clients. Yeah,
once the fitness person, like athlete, once an athlete, always an athlete.
it's my passion. But it was dealing with my clients, and we're talking about their health regimen, as far as their dietary standards should be, and them being consistent and coming in and performing their exercises, depending on whether they were a private client or whether they were with the group. But I wanted them to be consistent. So whenever they would fall off, we'd have conversations, and I'd be like, okay, so you said you wanted this, you said that you wanted this, you wanted to see this. Why don't you act accordingly? You know what you should be doing, so why aren't you doing it? And it kind of stuck to act accordingly, because they started repeating the phrase whenever they would get off track, and I'd be looking at them, and I said, we need to have a conversation. They're like, no, no, act accordingly. I'm going to act accordingly. So it stuck. And as I moved from fitness coaching over into men's mindset and performance, it stuck. And I was just like, and then I found a scripture in the Bible that also like stuck with it. I like to use biblical principles along with my practical principles. And it was, I think it's James 4:17. I may be wrong, but it says to know what you ought to do and not do it is a sin. So when you know what you should be doing and then you not do it, no one can be blamed for the results you get but you, because you need to act accordingly.
I love it, man. That's when I heard it resonated for those folks out there. Act accordingly is super key and super important. By the way, you mentioned that you also used the word mindset several times. From a mindset perspective, how do affirmations play a part? I mean, act accordingly could be his own affirmation. I love the biblical scripture. Are there other affirmations that you share with folks so they can be consistent and they can act accordingly?
Um, I pretty much like stick with it changes from person to person, but I
Yeah.
think the act accordingly is just so strong, because it sticks with everyone. When I'm out in public and I run into people and they'll be like, act accordingly. He's like, I'm acting accordingly. I know I should be. And it's like I have conversations like, hey man, how's that diet going on? How's the exercise going? He's like, I'm not acting accordingly. So it's like a drill sergeant in your ear constantly. The word act accordingly, it just rings with you. And when you're doing something that you know you shouldn't be doing, or you're going against what it is that you shouldn't be doing, what you should be doing, act accordingly. It just rings in your head. It's just like a slap. It's a drill sergeant. It lets you know right then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So you know what? Who's going to be to blame for this but you?
I love that act accordingly, like how you tied to the mindset and to the fitness area. How did you get into the fitness world, man?
It was actually a life change for me. Um, before, I'll be transparent again. I used to run the streets heavily, and it was a lot of drinking. I did a lot of drug use, and I wanted a change. I just first got married, and I had children, and I wanted to be. I say this: your children couldn't be proud of their father's occupation for him doing things illegal. They can't be proud of their dad in that. So I decided I needed to do a change in my life, and I got into fitness because it pulled me away from the crowds and the groups that I was running with. And I'm always intrigued about the depth of things and going in a little deeper. So just outside of doing the regular exercises, I got into looking in magazines and watching videos and doing different exercises, CrossFit and boxing and adding MMA and all of those type of workouts into it. And it got good, and people were watching me, and they'd be like, "Hey, why'd you do this? Why'd you do this?" And that kind of pushed me over into the arena of being a fitness coach.
I think it goes hand in hand because you talk about the fitness, but you also talk about the mindset to do other things. When you hear the word drive and determination, I think those two words, what goes to your mind when you hear those words? I like to act accordingly. You got to act accordingly. And I like you talk about the part of being consistent. But there seems to be this inner piece and the mindset piece that you've got to have the drive, you got to have the determination. You can believe all day is possible, but if you don't take any action, we don't need nobody believing anymore. We need people to take action. Drive and determination. Talk about how that may play a part in someone being able to act accordingly on a consistent basis.
Well, it definitely plays a part in this. Would be the reason. It's always your why. It comes back to your why. Why do you want to change? Why do you want to be different? Why do you want this goal in particular? And once you can define, hey, I'm tired of this lifestyle that I've had. I'm tired of the results that I've been having. It goes to, like, I had a court case at one time, and it was a pretty serious charge that I was facing, and I was in prayer, and I asked the Lord. I was like, okay, you know what? I don't really want you to change the circumstance. I want you to change my heart. So if you change my heart, then I won't do the things that I was doing before. I wouldn't be motivated by those things. I'd be driven by other things. So when you're driven and you're motivated to really want change and be a change and be someone different, then you start lining up your priorities a lot differently. You start really thinking about long-term things rather than immediate.
I love it, man. I love how you mentioned that. And along this journey, if you had to think of any mentor, did you have mentors along this journey, or was something you had to do all this all alone?
I actually kind of did this all alone. I always searched out mentors, but um, the influences that I had growing up, they were faulty. They weren't the best, and that's what led me in the direction that I went. I was always a guy who had a strong mind. I was always curious about things, and I always questioned things. So I was always on the fence about what I'd be doing, but it was the pattern that I knew. It was the environment that I knew, so I stuck with it. And I think that's the issue with a lot of men, the environment that we've been accustomed to and the way that we've been taught and what we've learned and what we see around us. We're going to always mimic what we see rather than what someone, just like children, they're going to mimic what they see rather than what you tell them. So it's about getting out of, if you really want change, you have to get out of the previous environment that you had. You can't stay in the same environment and expect to change and be another person when you're still in the same environment. You want to change environments if you want to change you. And
I
changing
love it.
you
What do you
will
enjoy most about what
ultimately
you?
change your environment.
Go ahead and finish. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
Oh, I apologize. No, I was just saying, and ultimately, when you change you, you'll actually change your environment. It's not a thing that you have to so much cut people off or delete people out of your life. When you're changing, some people will just automatically kind of step aside. When they see that you're pushing back from the table, Some people don't give you a fight. Some people will congratulate you. They're not ready to leave yet. And others will have a problem with it. But you have to do what's good for you. And if you're a man that has a family, then you definitely have to do what's good for you for the sake of your family.
Yeah. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing these days, man? You seem to be having fun. I got a chance to meet you and your wife. What do you enjoy about what you're doing now?
I'm enjoying everything about it. I just earlier, I was out at a school today. I was sharing with a bunch of students, um, talking about self confidence, talking about complaining, talking about discipline. I really enjoy, just like when I was really just a fitness coach alone. I love seeing the transformation in people. I like to see people go from being kind of passive about their change or being very timid to aggressively going after it or being more assertive. And now when they see someone changing different portions of their life because they've conquered this one part, now they don't see a problem with being assertive in every other area of their life that they see that they were lacking in. So just working with men, talking with men, and being one-on-one with them or in a group and seeing them say, hey, you know what, I'm doing this different with my children, I'm doing this different with my wife, I'm doing this different about myself. I get so much enjoyment out of seeing transformation in men.
Yeah, I love what you're doing, and I had a chance to meet you and your wife. How did you and your wife meet, man? I mean, I want to make sure the audience understands the story. He is married now, and again, ladies and gentlemen, happily married. But how did
Yes.
you meet your wife? Tell us about that, man.
Yes. Okay, yes. I was divorced, but I am remarried. We've been married now for 4 years. And the funny thing is, me and my wife, we were going to the same church for maybe 2 years, over a 2 year period. I'd say I may have said 12 words to her all of that time. We didn't really pay each other any attention. This is the funny thing about our marriage is so I was a cheater in my previous marriage, and she came from being cheated on. And I expressed that to her in the beginning, that I laid out all of the ugliness of what I was to her. So nothing would be a surprise about my past. I was like, hey, I cheated on, I started my marriage with a girlfriend, had girlfriends all throughout the marriage. But you know what? I've been changed. I've been reformed. I've got Christ in my life. And you know what? I know all the things not to do as a man that's saying that he's a husband now. So that aspect of, you never have to worry about that from me. And our marriage, our relationship, our friendship, our partnership, it's just been an effortless thing. We don't even have to try. I don't think we've ever had a moment of having like that awkward pause.
Well, that's exciting, man. You're doing some amazing work. I appreciate you spending time on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. How can folks best connect with you, man, so they can stay in this conversation? How can they find you online?
Okay, you can find me, contact me, get in touch with me in several ways. But the first way I'd say that you can get access to me is through my website. It's www.2actaccordingly.com. It's www.2actaccordingly.com. And for my social media handles, you could find me on Instagram, the number two act accordingly. You could also find me on TikTok. It'll be dot the number two act accordingly. On TikTok, it'll be dot the number two act accordingly. And on Facebook, you can simply find me by my name, Daniel J. Williams.
Man, let me say thanks so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. I appreciate it. Can't wait to connect with you and your wife the next time I'm back in Columbia, South Carolina, which I think is in February.
Oh, wow. That's great, man. I'm glad to be on this show. So happy that you had me. And yes, it was an honor, man. Can't wait to meet you in person again.
Cool beans. And thank you. Thank you to viewers. Thank you for tuning in, by the way. Without you, there is no show. So we appreciate every time you show up. We appreciate every comment, by the way. Take this episode and hit the like, hit the share button. Pay it forward to someone else and to that community. And I never get tired of reminding you every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that you are special. You are unique. I know it sounds like a lot of hyperbole and it sounds like fluffy, but no. You're here. You're destined for greatness. And no matter what's going on in your life, whether you're doing really, really well and there's another level to get to, or life's hit you with the punch you never saw coming. Here's what I know to be true. Today is your January 1st, and because of just that one reason, your best is still yet to come. Your best is yet to come. Your best is yet to come. With that being said, my name, it ain't changed, still Che Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur. Make it a great day, everyone, and we'll make some good things happen. We connect again next time. God bless. Wish you success. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later, Daniel. Peace.
Yes, sir.